The Thunderbolts and the Suicide Squad are very similar in some ways. Both teams consist of members who have done bad things but are trying to do something good to stop the world from ending, which would usually be out of character. The simpler definition for this is anti-hero. But as similar as they may look on a surface level, the two teams are still very different. The Suicide Squad's members were only doing what they were told, and if they completed their mission, there was something in it for them. Or their alternative was to continue to rot in prison. And at the end of the Suicide Squad, the surviving members blackmailed their way out of prison. The team's actions in this movie went unnoticed by the world and kept under wraps by the government. Their reputations publicly remain the same, with no redemption in the world's eyes, and barely a reward. They continue to be known as villains who need to be in prison. The Thunderbolts are different in that way. From what we've seen so far, the members of this team are seeking redemption, all coming from separate stories as side characters, from different projects. As far as we know, their shared motive is redemption for themselves, to be known as more than stealth operatives or social rejects. Sentry is the main villain of this movie, and from the trailers Marvel has released so far, whatever Sentry will do will be unforgettable. The government won't be able to cover it up, and it can't go unnoticed. Unlike the Suicide Squad's missions, the Thunderbolts will most likely save the day. But even if they don't, they won't go back to their normal statuses when the movie concludes, and they probably will have learned something from the experience, instead of just doing a good thing for the time because something's in it for them. But to think about the circumstances of the two teams and its members could be questionable, because the Suicide Squad had less of a choice. In comparison to how the two teams are managed, Amanda Waller is a very manipulative leader, who makes it clear she hired the team to do a job and that only. At the start of Suicide Squad, she establishes she sees the team as expendable assets and less as valued individuals. She needed them for a high-risk mission, but had no personal interest in their well-being, and she made this very clear by implanting explosive devices in their necks. She ensured obedience through fear, instead of trust. Her interactions with the team were straightforward and very direct, showing that they were tools for the government, and not heroes or redeemable figures in her eyes. But the Thunderbolts may have a more shared leadership from what we've seen in the previous projects. Each member is very strong-willed. This makes it difficult, if not impossible, to see them taking orders they don't agree with. Their decisions will likely be decided as a team and influenced in mutual respect, rather than control. Unlike Amanda, who sees the team as disposable, the Thunderbolts' leadership might depend on the members' individual experiences. It would be less about power and more about tactical thinking. And this dynamic would even be different from the Avengers, because on that team, it's obvious that Captain America is the leader. And despite the things they've been through as a team, Cap remains the leader. And speaking of the dynamic between the members, I noticed something about the Suicide Squad that makes their team look questionable compared to other teams even in their own universe. The Thunderbolts will come together at a time of crisis in the world. They were actually sent to kill each other, but they ended up making it out of the fight. They would shortly after be able to come to a mutual understanding and were able to form a solid team, despite the fact that they tried to kill each other just seconds ago. They realized they're forcefully being put against each other, and their whole interaction was set up by Val. Again, this is just based on what we've seen, and even that is a strong foundation to build the team on. The Suicide Squad were forcefully recruited onto the team, and whether they helped or not, there were life-threatening consequences. And although this isn't a bad setup, presumably it's going to make the viewers question if they weren't forced, would they even be on the same team, or interact in any way outside of their mission. In the first Suicide Squad film, of course, the team faced many trials while trying to complete their mission, and it tested how strong the members were as a team. And from what we saw, they nearly fell apart multiple times, reminding the audience again that the only reason they're working together is because of the circumstances they're under. And this is a very weak foundation to build a team on. The members of both teams aren't considerable heroes. That's what separates them from the Justice League and the Avengers. They don't just begin their storylines being great and heroic. Instead, it's something they have to build towards, which sets realistic standards for the heroes, and that makes them relatable, so the audience will be able to understand their actions on a personal level, showcasing that even heroes can be imperfect. Maybe they wanted their audience to view the Suicide Squad as villains, being forced to do a good thing. And if that was the case, then the characters are spot on and the movie is perfect. But if that were the case, they would have never tried to get us to sympathize with these characters in the first place. For example, Deadshot. Throughout the entire movie, we know that Deadshot's motivation is not to save the world. It's to get back to his daughter. So we feel sympathy for him, because he just wants to be a providing father in his daughter's life. Or Chato Santana. Due to an accident caused by his powers, he lost his family, and we see he doesn't forgive himself for it. But do him or Deadshot feel bad for any of their crimes or actions that didn't affect their personal life? Probably not. The Thunderbolts have each expressed regret and guilt for their past actions, giving them room for emotional growth. Audiences can empathize more with the characters on this team. For example, Bucky Barnes, formerly known as the Winter Soldier, has committed serious crimes, and it took him a while to forgive himself. But this realistic take on the character gives viewers an opportunity to look at Bucky as he is, a human, who made a mistake and regrets it more than anything, as all normal people do. I would just like to make it clear that if you are killing hundreds of people under an operative name, I do not condone or support that, and you need to be in prison. Another example is Yelena. Her journey to becoming who she is was built around grief and loss, particularly after the death of her sister Natasha. Her struggle to move past this emotional experience makes her feel human, so then it's easier for audiences to understand why Yelena may do what she does. The Thunderbolts and the Suicide Squad both have pretty good team dynamics, and I won't say too much about the members on one team who haven't gotten too much screen time yet, because Thunderbolts hasn't released yet. But when it does, I hope Marvel was able to avoid the same mistakes made in Suicide Squad, where we really get to know 3 or 4 of the members on the team while the others become the backbone and support of the lead stories. What I mean by that is a character on a team who doesn't get much attention or screen time at all, but it would feel wrong if they died, because then how would the audience decide who on the team they like the least? In the Thunderbolts case, this is Taskmaster. In the Suicide Squad's case, this was every character who wasn't Deadshot, Harley Quinn, or surprisingly Joker. These teams are both individually different in terms of overall purpose. The Suicide Squad leaned more into a more controlled feel, while the Thunderbolts focus on their shared goal for redemption. With that being said, the whole anti-hero team dynamic can very easily go right or wrong. For example, Suicide Squad has a sequel, The Suicide Squad. And although I didn't love this movie, it was still good and different from the first film, and this made their journey feel authentic. And in a way, this is what I hope the Thunderbolts will do, by pulling each of these individuals together and hopefully them being able to build slowly from within. If you made it this far in the video, you either agree with what I'm saying or you're preparing to write a hate comment. Either way, go ahead, like and subscribe so I can keep pointing out Marvel's mistakes and so you can keep commenting about how much you disagree. Until then, have a wonderful day.